Welcome to Hearths of Myths. Tonight, we do not look up at the sun-drenched peaks of Mount Olympus, where the air is thin and the light is blinding. We do not walk the golden halls where nectar flows and the laughter of Zeus shakes the firmament. Instead, we must turn our gaze downward. We must descend. We are going to a place before light, before noise, before the very concept of breath existed. We are journeying into the velvet silence of the primordial void to witness the birth of the most inevitable, the most feared, and yet the most peaceful of all the gods. Close your eyes. Let the heaviness of the day slide off your shoulders. Let the noise of the modern world fade into a distant, meaningless hum. Imagine, if you can, a silence so profound that it has a texture. It is not merely the absence of sound. It is a physical weight, a thick, enveloping blanket that presses against your skin, soothing and terrifying in equal measure. In this silence, there is no time. There is no ticking clock, no rising sun to mark the passing of hours. There is only existence, pure, unadulterated existence. We are standing at the edge of the chasm. In the ancient Greek tongue it was called chaos, but do not mistake this for disorder or confusion. In the cosmology of Hesiod, the great poet of the Theogony, chaos was not a mess. It was a gap. It was a yawning void, a space of infinite potentiality, a dark womb from which reality itself would eventually be birthed. And from this chasm, two great primordial entities emerged, drifting apart like oil separating from water. One was Gaia, the broad-breasted earth, the foundation of all things. But the other was Nyx, night. It is here, with Nyx, that our story truly begins. To understand the god of death, we must first understand the goddess of night. She is not simply the time of day when the sun goes down. She is a being of immense power, a deity so ancient and so formidable that even Zeus, the king of the gods, the wielder of the thunderbolt, would hesitate to displease her. In the 14th book of the Iliad, Homer tells us that when Hypnos, the god of sleep, sought refuge from the wrath of Zeus, he fled to the protective embrace of his mother, Nyx. And Zeus, raging and powerful, stopped his pursuit. He held back his hand. Why? Because he stood in awe of the swift night. He feared doing anything that might offend the swift-running night. Think of that power. The king of Olympus, who overthrew the Titans and battles monsters, pauses before the majesty of the night. She is a figure of sweeping black wings, crowned with shadows, driving a chariot not of gold, but of ebony, pulled by horses that breathe darkness instead of fire. She is the mother of mysteries. She is the source of all that is hidden, all that is intuitive, and all that is final. And she did not dwell alone in the void. In the earliest moments of creation, before the stars were scattered across the firmament like diamond dust, Nyx lay with Erebos. Erebos is the darkness of the deep. If Nyx is the night sky that covers the earth, Erebos is the shadow that fills the cracks, the caves, and the deep hollows of the underworld. He is the air that the dead breathe. Together, these two primordial forces, the night and the deep darkness, entwined in the silence of the cosmos. It was a union of absolute stillness. There was no thunder, no flash of lightning, no violent upheaval. It was a merging of shadow with shadow, a deepening of the gloom until it became solid, until it became life. And from this union, from the dark, fertile womb of Nyx, a brood of children was born. They were not the bright, shining gods of the sky. They were the dark abstractions of the human condition. They were the inevitable truths that every mortal must face. Hesiod lists them in a litany of somber power. There was Moros, the embodiment of doom, the destiny that drives a man toward his end. There was Garrus, old age, the hateful graying that steals strength and memory. There was Oasis, the spirit of misery and woe. There was Apate, deceit, and Eris, strife. These were the children of the night, the siblings of the shadow. They were the forces that make life difficult, the burdens that weigh down the soul. But among this terrifying brood, there were two brothers, two entities who were different. They were not born of malice. They were not born to cause suffering, though men would often weep at their arrival. They were born to bring rest. They were the answer to the exhaustion of existence. One was Hypnos, the god of sleep, the gentle one, the one who wanders over the broad back of the sea and the earth, pouring sweet slumber from his horn, soothing the minds of anxious men. He is the friend of humanity, the little death that we welcome each night to recharge our weary bones. And then there was the other, the darker twin, the silent one, Thanatos, death. In the ancient texts, Thanatos is not the skeletal reaper of medieval plague art. He does not carry a scythe. He does not rattle with bones. He is a god of breathtaking beauty and terrible gravity. He is often depicted in the ancient vase paintings as a winged youth, sometimes bearded, sometimes fresh-faced, indistinguishable from his brother Hypnos, except for the heaviness of his gaze. He carries a sword, yes, but it is often sheathed, or used only to cut a lock of hair to consecrate the dying soul to the underworld. Sometimes he carries an inverted torch, the flame extinguished, symbolizing the life that has burned out. Hesiod describes him with a chilling reverence in the Theogony. He writes that while Hypnos is gentle and sweet to men, Thanatos has a heart of iron. His spirit within his breast is made of pitiless bronze. Once he seizes a man, he holds him fast and does not let go. He is an entity who is hateful even to the deathless gods. Let us pause and consider the weight of those words, a heart of iron. In the Bronze Age and the early Iron Age mind, iron was the hardest, most unyielding substance known. It was cold. It was difficult to work. To say a god has a heart of iron is not to say he is cruel. Cruelty implies a desire to cause pain, a malicious intent. Thanatos has no malice. He has something far more terrifying. He has permanence. He is the immovable object. He cannot be bribed with gold. He cannot be swayed by prayers. He cannot be moved by the tears of a grieving mother or the bargaining of a wealthy king. He is the inevitable. He is the wall against which all human striving eventually breaks. This pitiless nature is what defines him. In a world of fickle gods, where Poseidon might spare your ship if you sacrifice a bull, or Aphrodite might grant you love if you sing her praises, Thanatos stands apart. He accepts no sacrifices. There are no great temples to Thanatos in the city squares of Athens or Thebes. There are no festivals with dancing and wine in his honor. Why build a temple to a god who does not listen? Why burn incense for a god who will come when he is ready, regardless of what you do? He is the only god who does not require human validation. He simply is. But where does such a being reside? Where does the god of death call home when he is not walking the battlefields or standing at the bedsides of the dying? To find his dwelling, we must follow the geography of the mythic underworld as laid out by Hesiod. We must travel to the ends of the earth, to the place where the roots of the sea and the land and the starry sky are all tied together. We must go to Tartarus. This is not merely the hell of punishment. It is the basement of the universe. It is a vast, misty, gloomy region, as far beneath the earth is beneath the sky. Hesiod gives us a dizzying sense of scale. If you were to drop a bronze anvil from heaven, it would fall for 9 days and 9 nights before hitting the earth. And if you dropped it from the earth, it would fall for another 9 days and 9 nights before reaching Tartarus. Here, in this unimaginable depth, amidst the swirling mists and the damp chill, stands the House of Night. It is described as a terrible house, wrapped in dark clouds. It is a place of shadows and whispers. And in front of this house stands the great Atlas, the Titan who holds up the wide heaven on his head and unwearying hands. The proximity of Atlas is significant. It suggests that the House of Night is located at the very axis of the world, the pivot point where the sky meets the underworld. It is at this threshold, this bronze threshold, that a daily cosmic ritual takes place. It is a meeting of mothers and daughters, of light and dark. Hesiod tells us that night and day, Nyx and Hemera, draw near and greet one another as they pass the great threshold of bronze. They never stay in the house together. One is always entering as the other is leaving. When day walks the earth, shining her light upon mortals, the house is filled with the dark presence of night. And when night takes her chariot into the sky to spread darkness, day rests within the house, waiting for her turn. And within this house, the children of night make their home. This is the dwelling of the 2 brothers, Hypnos and Thanatos, the terrible gods. The glowing sun never looks upon them with his beams, neither when he climbs up into heaven, nor when he comes down from heaven. They live in a perpetual twilight, a soft, gray existence, shielded from the harsh scrutiny of the solar eye. Imagine the atmosphere of this house. It is quiet, but it is not empty. It is filled with the soft rustling of wings. Both brothers are winged deities. Hypnos flits about, his wings dripping with sweet, drowsy liquid, perhaps the juice of poppies. He is peaceful, roaming over the earth and the sea's broad back, bringing rest to all creatures. He is kind. He mimics his brother, practicing on the living what Thanatos performs on the dying. Every night, when you close your eyes and drift away, you are in the arms of Hypnos. You are practicing for the end. But Thanatos sits in the deeper shadows. He is the stillness that does not break. He does not roam aimlessly. He waits for the decree of the fates, the Moirai. These 3 sisters, Clotho, who spins the thread of life, Lachesis, who measures it, and Atropos, who cuts it, are the only force that dictates the movements of Thanatos. When the thread is cut, the iron-hearted god rises. He unfurls his great, dark wings. He ascends from the depths of Tartarus, passing the roots of the earth, moving silently through the caverns of the underworld, until he emerges into the world of men. He comes not as a conqueror, but as a claimer. He is coming to collect what is owed. In the ancient Greek worldview, Life was often seen as a loan from the gods, a temporary spark of vitality housed in a fragile vessel of clay. Thanatos is the debt collector. But unlike human debt collectors, he is not aggressive. He is simply undeniably present. There is a profound melancholy in his origin story. Born of night, living in darkness, unseen by the sun, and hated by the other gods. Why is he hated? Because he represents the one thing the gods do not have. The gods are athanatoi, the deathless ones. Their very definition is the absence of Thanatos. He is the negation of their existence. To a being that lives forever, the concept of ending is an abomination, a terrifying void that they cannot comprehend. Apollo, the god of light and healing, fights against Thanatos constantly. Every time a doctor saves a patient, it is a skirmish between Apollo and Thanatos. Every time a prayer for long life is answered, it is a temporary victory against the iron heart. But Thanatos is patient. He knows that Apollo's victories are temporary. He knows that eventually the medicine will fail, the prayer will fade, the thread will run out, and he will be there. This tension between the deathless gods and the god of death is woven into the very fabric of Greek mythology. It creates a boundary. The gods can intervene in human life. They can change shapes. They can throw thunderbolts. But they cannot ultimately stop Thanatos. Even Zeus, with all his power, is bound by the laws of fate. We see this limitation hinted at in the Iliad, where Zeus laments that he cannot save his own son, Sarpedon, from the hands of Thanatos. He asks Hera if he should pluck his son from the battle, and Hera warns him, "Do not do it. If you break the law of death for your son, every other god will want to save their children. The order of the world will collapse." So, Thanatos is not just a killer. He is the keeper of order. He is the guardian of the limit. Without him, the world would be chaotic. Without the boundary of death, life would lose its urgency, its sweetness, its tragic beauty. He is the shadow that gives the light its definition. Let us return to the image of the two brothers in the house of night. It is a scene of intimate, quiet power. They are often depicted sleeping together in the arms of their mother, Nyx. One is a white boy, representing sleep. The other is a black boy, representing death. This imagery, found on the chest of Kypselos, as described by the traveler Pausanias, reinforces their duality. They are two sides of the same coin. The Greeks understood that sleep and death were physiologically similar. When you sleep, your breathing slows, your body cools, your consciousness fades. You enter a realm of dreams, a shadow world. To the ancient mind, it was a short journey to the realm of Thanatos. This is why the brothers are inseparable. Where one goes, the other is often close behind. When a warrior falls on the battlefield, he first falls into a swoon, the touch of Hypnos, before the final darkness of Thanatos takes him. But Thanatos has other siblings, darker siblings, whom we must distinguish him from. We mentioned the Keres earlier. The Keres are the spirits of violent death, of slaughter, of doom on the battlefield. They are described in horrific terms, gnashing their teeth, drinking the blood of the fallen, fighting over corpses with their claws. They are the chaos of war. Thanatos is not a cur. He is often contrasted with them. While the Keres represent the act of dying violently, the pain, the gore, the horror. Thanatos represents the state of death, the transition, the finality. He is dignified. He is the silence after the scream. When the battle is over, when the Keres have had their fill and flown away, it is Thanatos who remains to gently lift the soul from the broken body and guide it down to the shores of the Styx. He is the calm after the storm. There is a specific word used in the ancient texts to describe the kind of death Thanatos brings: hallowed. He hallows the dying. He sanctifies them. By cutting the lock of hair, he transforms a mortal being into a shade, a spirit of the underworld. He initiates them into the great mystery of the afterlife. He is, in a sense, the first priest. As we visualize him rising from the house of night, preparing to ascend to the world of the living, we must strip away our modern fears. We must try to see him as the ancients did, not as a monster, but as a necessity. A hard, cold, iron necessity, yes, but a necessity nonetheless. He is the child of the void, the son of the night, the brother of sleep. He is the stillness that awaits us all. And as he steps over the bronze threshold, leaving the mists of Tartarus behind, his great wings catch the updraft of the underworld. He glides silently upward, past the roots of the mountains, past the deep springs of the ocean. He is coming to the surface. He is coming to the plains of Troy. He is coming to the bedside of the king and the beggar alike. He is the great leveler, and his story is just beginning. For even a god of such absolute power is not without his challenges. Even the inevitable can be tricked, can be fought, and can be bargained with, at least for a time. But before we see him struggle, we must see him in his full, unbridled majesty. We must turn to the greatest poet of them all, to the blind bard who sang of the wrath of Achilles. We must go to the dusty plains of Ilion, where Thanatos performs one of his most tender and solemn duties. The wind is rising. The sun is setting over the battlefield. The clash of bronze against bronze is fading, and through the smoke and the dust, two winged figures approach a fallen prince. One is sleep. The other is death, and they have a body to carry home. The dust of the Trojan plain is thick and choking. It settles on the bronze armor of men who screamed only moments ago, and now lie silent, their eyes staring fixedly at the indifferent sky. The sun, Helios, begins his descent into the western ocean, casting long, bruised shadows across the battlefield. Here, amidst the carnage of the greatest war in mythic history, we find the defining moment of Thanatos. It is not a moment of killing. That is the work of spears, of swords, of heavy rocks thrown by desperate hands. It is a moment of retrieval. We are turning the pages of the Iliad to Book 16. The fighting is fierce. Patroclus, wearing the armor of Achilles, is rampaging through the Trojan lines, and standing against him is Sarpedon. Sarpedon is not an ordinary man. He is the son of Zeus. He is a king of Lycia, a warrior of immense stature and nobility. But even the son of the king of gods is not immune to the shears of fate. Zeus looks down from Mount Ida. He sees his son facing Patroclus. He sees the thread of Sarpedon's life running thin, and for a moment the order of the cosmos trembles. Zeus, the cloud-gatherer, considers breaking the rules. He speaks to Hera, his sister and wife, expressing a desire to snatch Sarpedon away from the tearful war. to whisk him back to the rich land of Lycia, alive and whole. But Hera, the guardian of boundaries, the queen of Olympus, rebukes him. Her words are sharp, but they reveal the terrifying necessity of death. "Most dread son of Cronus," she says, "what word is this you have spoken? A man who is mortal, doomed long since by fate. Are you minded to free him from purely sounding death? Do it then. But not all the other gods will approve." She warns him that if he defies Thanatos now, if he denies death its prize, then every god will want to save their own sons. The hierarchy of the universe, the distinction between the mortal and the divine, will collapse into chaos. Zeus listens. He weeps tears of blood that fall upon the earth, a red rain honoring his beloved son. But he nods. He accepts. Sarpedon must die. The spear of Patroclus flies. It strikes Sarpedon, where the diaphragm encloses the beating heart. The Lycian king falls as an oak tree falls, or a poplar, or a towering pine that shipwrights cut down in the mountains with whetted axes. He calls out to his comrade Glaucus, and then, the text tells us, the end of death enfolded his eyes and his nostrils. Now, the battle rages over the body. The Greeks want to strip the armor. The Trojans want to protect the corpse. It is a chaotic, bloody scramble, a scene of desecration. But Zeus has not forgotten his promise to Hera. He calls Apollo the far shooter. "Go now, dear Phoebus," Zeus commands. "Cleanse Sarpedon of the dark blood. Bear him far away from the javelins. Wash him in the streams of the river. Anoint him with ambrosia, and clothe him in immortal garments." And then comes the instruction that summons our protagonist. "And give him to swift convoys to carry, to the twin brothers, Sleep and Death, to Hypnos and Thanatos." This scene, immortalized on the famous Euphronios crater, a masterpiece of ancient Greek pottery, gives us the clearest visual and theological understanding of Thanatos in the archaic mind. Apollo cleans the body first. This is crucial. Thanatos is not a scavenger. He is not a carrion bird. He is a divine courier. The body must be prepared, sanctified, washed of the grime of mortal struggle before the god of death will touch it. Imagine the silence that descends as Apollo finishes his work. The roar of the battle seems to fade into the background, and then they arrive. They do not come with thunder. They do not come with a blast of trumpets. They materialize from the air, the twin brothers, Hypnos with his soft, drowsy smile, and Thanatos with his somber, iron gaze. On the Euphronios crater, they are depicted as winged warriors, fully armed, yet they are not fighting. They are lifting. They bend down, one at the head, one at the feet. They lift the massive body of Sarpedon. The sheer tenderness of this act is startling. In a poem dedicated to rage and violence, this is a moment of supreme gentleness. They do not drag him. They do not toss him over a shoulder. They carry him. They launch into the air. We must visualize this flight. Leaving the blood-soaked plains of Troy, rising above the smoke of the burning ships, they fly south. They cross the wine-dark sea, the wind rushing through their wings. Hypnos likely soothes the pain of the trauma, ensuring the spirit is at rest, while Thanatos holds the weight of the mortality. They carry him all the way to the broad, fertile lands of Lycia. They lay him down gently in his own homeland, so that his kinsmen can bury him with a mound and a pillar. This is the good death. This is the function of Thanatos when he is working in harmony with the divine order. He is the agent of closure. He brings the hero home. He ensures that the body is not left to the dogs and birds, but is restored to the earth that birthed it. Here, Thanatos is not the enemy of life. He is the guardian of dignity. But what does he look like? If we strip away the helmet and the wings of the Euphronios depiction, how did the Greeks imagine the face of death? Hesiod, as we mentioned, called him iron-hearted and pitiless. But we must look closer at the tools he carries. In later tragedies, particularly in the works of Euripides, Thanatos is often described carrying a sword, a Sisyphus, or a Machaira. But this sword is not for combat. He is not dueling the dying man. The sword has a ritual purpose. It is used to cut a lock of hair. In the ancient Greek sacrificial rites, before an animal was killed and offered to the gods, a tuft of hair was cut from its forehead and thrown into the fire. This marked the animal as consecrated. It belonged to the god now. Thanatos performs this same rite on humans. When he approaches the dying, he is the priest of the underworld. He cuts the invisible lock of hair, or perhaps a real one, in the symbolic sense, and thereby releases the psyche, the soul, from the fetters of the soma, the body. This act of cutting creates a severance. It is the moment the light leaves the eyes. It is the moment the thumos, the breath, the spirit, the driving force of emotion, dissipates into the air, and the psyche, the shade, the image of the man, descends to the house of Hades. Thanatos, therefore, acts as a surgeon of the metaphysical. He separates the eternal shade from the decaying flesh, and he does so with an efficiency that is terrifying. He does not linger. He does not gloat. He appears, he performs the cut, and he departs. There is a striking contrast between Thanatos and the other death spirits we find in Homer. We must return to the Keres to fully appreciate Thanatos's nobility. In the Iliad, the Keres are described as black dooms. They are present when a man dies in agony. When a spear pierces the liver, or a rock crushes the skull, the Keres are there, drinking the black blood, dragging the dead by their feet through the carnage. They are chaotic, dirty, and frightening. They represent the experience of a violent death, the pain, the fear, the adrenaline. Thanatos is different. He is the fact of death. Even if a man is killed by a spear, after the Keres have fed on the violence, it is Thanatos who claims the result. He is the silence that follows the scream. He is the coldness that settles into the limbs after the heat of battle has evaporated. He is the clean, hard truth that remains when the emotion of the fight is gone. This distinction is vital for understanding why the Greeks simultaneously feared and respected him. You might pray to Ares to save you from the Keres, to save you from a painful, bloody end, but you do not pray to be saved from Thanatos. You know he is coming eventually. You only hope that when he comes like he came for Sarpedon, accompanied by his brother Sleep, carrying you gently home. In the Odyssey, the perspective shifts from the battlefield to the aftermath. When Odysseus journeys to the entrance of the underworld, he digs a trench and fills it with blood to summon the spirits. The shades that come up are insubstantial, drifting like smoke. They are amenena carena. strengthless heads. They have lost their vitality. This loss is the work of Thanatos. He drains the color, the heat, and the strength from the living. Hesiod's description of Thanatos as hateful even to the deathless gods suggests a deep cosmic isolation. Why would the gods hate him? Because he renders their gifts temporary. Apollo can grant the gift of prophecy, Aphrodite the gift of beauty, Hermes the gift of luck. But Thanatos erases them all. He is the great undoer. He turns the prophet into a silent shade. He turns the beauty into dust. He turns the lucky man into a memory. This antagonism is not an active war, but a passive tension. Thanatos walks into a room, and the other gods leave. They cannot be present where he is working. Purity and pollution were central concepts in Greek religion. Death was a miasma, a pollution. A temple priest could not touch a corpse. A god of Olympus could not look upon a dying man without being diminished. So, Thanatos works in a vacuum. He works alone, or with his dark siblings. He does the dirty work of the cosmos, so that Zeus can remain shining and pure on his mountaintop. Yet, there is a strange beauty in this isolation. Thanatos is incorruptible. In a society where judges could be bought, where kings could be swayed by gold, and where even gods could be flattered with hecatombs of oxen, Thanatos is the only impartial judge. He takes the beggar and the king. He takes the beautiful Helen and the ugly Thersites. He takes the strong Achilles and the weak infant. He does not check your bank account. He does not care about your lineage. He checks the thread of the fates, and if the measurement is complete, he acts. This impartiality is what Hesiod meant by a pitiless heart. It is the pitilessness of gravity. Gravity does not hate you when you fall. It simply acts according to its nature. Thanatos is the gravity of the soul. However, the Greeks, being lovers of life and light, struggled to accept this finality without some attempt at negotiation. While the primary texts depict Thanatos as inevitable, the human spirit constantly asks, is there no way to cheat him? Is there no way to lock the door against the night? Homer gives us a hint of this defiance in the very character of Odysseus, a man who survives the impossible, who goes to the land of the dead and returns. But Odysseus does not fight Thanatos. He evades him. He outwits the situations that would lead to death. But what if a man dared to fight the god himself? What if someone tried to put chains on the inevitable? There are legends, whispered in the corridors of power, and told by the firesides of rebels, of men who did not accept the gentle transport. Men who looked at the iron heart of Thanatos and decided to test its hardness against their own cunning. The most famous of these is a king of Corinth, a man whose name became synonymous with trickery, Sisyphus. The transition from the obedient, ritualistic Thanatos of Homer to the deceived Thanatos of the Sisyphus myth marks a shift in our understanding. It shows us that while death is a force of nature, in the anthropomorphic world of Greek myth, he is also a person. And persons have weaknesses. Persons have pride. Persons can be tricked. Imagine Thanatos, fresh from the fields of Troy, his wings weary, his duty done. He is the professional, the hallowed conveyor of souls. He expects submission. He expects fear. He does not expect a mortal to look him in the eye and smile with a hidden intent. He does not expect the chains. But before we descend into the dungeons of Sisyphus's palace, let us linger one last moment on the image of the winged god. We must appreciate his aesthetic. In the ancient world, death was not always a skeleton. That imagery belongs to the medieval danse macabre. For the Greeks, Thanatos was a youth. He was essentially a darker, heavier version of Eros, love. Eros and Thanatos, love and death. Two sides of the passionate human experience. Eros unbinds the limbs with desire. Thanatos unbinds the limbs with cold. Eros has wings to fly into the heart. Thanatos has wings to fly out of the world. They are the two great liberating forces. One frees you from the self through union with another. The other frees you from the self through union with the void. This resemblance is intentional. It suggests that death, like love, is a seduction. It is a surrendering. When Thanatos comes, he is not always grabbing. Sometimes he is beckoning. He is offering a release from the toil, the ponos, of life. In the Odyssey, the shade of Agamemnon weeps, but the shade of Ajax stands aloof. They have different reactions to their state, but they are all held in the same embrace. The machaira, the sacrificial knife that Thanatos carries, glints in the twilight. It is not a weapon of war. It is a tool of harvest. The metaphor of the reaper begins here, not with a scythe for wheat, but with a knife for the sacrificial lock. He is harvesting the soul for the sustenance of the underworld. The dead need numbers. The realm of Hades is a kingdom, and a kingdom needs subjects. Thanatos is the recruiter. We have seen him as the silent brother in the house of night. We have seen him as the gentle carrier of Sarpedon on the winds of Lycia. We have seen him as the impartial, iron-hearted agent of the fates. But now, the tone must shift. The solemnity of the Iliad gives way to the cleverness of folklore. The god who cannot be stopped is about to meet the man who refuses to go. The natural order, so carefully protected by Hera and Zeus, is about to be violently disrupted. We are leaving the battlefield. We are leaving the realm of epic tragedy. We are traveling to the city of Corinth, to the high Acropolis, where a king watches the road, waiting for a guest he intends to capture. The chains are forged. The trap is set. The silence of Thanatos is about to be broken by the sound of clicking shackles, and the world is about to find out what happens when Death himself goes missing. What happens when the reaper is reaped? What happens to a world where the arrows fly, the swords strike, the poison is drunk, but the breath refuses to leave the body? Prepare yourself for a tale of supreme hubris. We are about to witness the binding of the unbindable. The city of Corinth, anciently known as Ephyra, sits like a watcher on the isthmus that connects the Peloponnese to the mainland of Greece. It is a city of commerce, of crossroads, and of deep, abiding ambition. And ruling over this city is a man whose name has echoed through the millennia, not for his strength, but for the sharpness of his mind. Sisyphus, son of Iolaus. In the catalogue of Greek heroes, we are used to men like Achilles, who solve problems with the spear, or Heracles, who solves them with the club. But Sisyphus is different. He is the archetype of the trickster king, the polytropos, or many-turning man, a label later applied to Odysseus. But where Odysseus used his wits to get home, Sisyphus uses his wits to defy the fundamental laws of existence. He is a man who looks at the boundaries set by the gods and sees only challenges to be overcome. His conflict with Thanatos begins, as many Greek tragedies do, with a secret. Sisyphus, from the high vantage point of the Acrocorinth, witnesses a crime. He sees Zeus, the king of the gods, in the form of a great eagle, seizing the nymph Aegina, the daughter of the river god Asopus. When the distraught father comes searching for his stolen child, the waters of his riverbed drying up in his grief, Sisyphus strikes a bargain. He will sell the secret of Zeus for a spring of fresh water on his citadel. He trades divine information for a municipal water supply. It is a pragmatic, kingly act. But it is also a fatal error. Zeus, enraged that a mortal would dare to interfere in his amorous conquests, decides that Sisyphus has lived too long. The thread must be cut. The order must be given. And so Zeus turns to the shadows. He does not send Hermes, the messenger. He does not send a lightning bolt. He sends the inevitable. He sends Thanatos. Imagine the scene. It is not the dust of a battlefield this time. It is the polished marble floor of a palace. Sisyphus is likely sitting on his throne, or perhaps pacing his courtyard, enjoying the cool water of the Pyrene spring he bought with his dangerous secret. The air grows cold. The torches flicker and dim, their flames shrinking as if deprived of oxygen. The birds in the palace gardens fall silent. And there, standing in the archway, is the figure we met on the plains of Troy, Thanatos. The wings of night are folded behind his back. The sword, the ritual blade for cutting the hair, is at his hip. His eyes are fixed on the king. He has come to collect the debt. In any other story, this is the end. The mortal looks upon death, trembles, and submits. But Sisyphus is not any other mortal. He has anticipated this. He knows that his betrayal of Zeus would bring consequences, and he has prepared a reception that defies all theological logic. According to the ancient chronicler Pherecydes of Athens, Sisyphus does not run. He does not beg. He welcomes Thanatos as a guest. He invokes the sacred laws of Xenia, of hospitality. He offers the dark god a seat. He offers him wine. He speaks with a silver tongue, flattering the grim deity. Lord of the dead, Sisyphus might say, it is an honor to be chosen by you personally. I am ready to go, but I see you carry equipment. He points to the chains. In some versions of the myth, Thanatos carries fetters, desmois, to bind the soul, ensuring it cannot flee on the journey to the underworld. In others, Sisyphus produces the chains himself, claiming they are a gift, a new invention to honor the god. These fetters, Sisyphus asks, his voice dripping with feigned curiosity. They look remarkably strong, but are they comfortable? How does one wear them? Surely, a god of your stature requires a specific technique to ensure the prisoner is secure. Thanatos, who is used to terror, not technical curiosity, is paused. He is an entity of routine. He has never been questioned about his methods. Perhaps out of pride, perhaps out of a desire to demonstrate the inescapability of his tools, or perhaps simply tricked by the king's baffling confidence, Thanatos agrees to demonstrate. Like this? The god might ask, slipping his wrists into the bronze cuffs, and with the speed of a striking viper, the trap is sprung. The click of the lock echoes through the palace hall. It is a sound that shouldn't exist. Sisyphus, the mortal man, has turned the key. He has bound the hands of death. He has chained the unchainable force to the physical world. Thanatos roars. He expands his wings. He summons the shadows. He pulls with the strength that drags empires into the dust. But the chains hold. They are forged not just of iron, but of Sisyphus's sheer, terrified will to survive. The king of Corinth throws the bound god into a deep, brazen cell beneath his palace, locking the door and throwing away the key. He returns to his throne, wiping the sweat from his brow. He pours himself a cup of wine. He takes a breath that he should not have taken. And then, nothing happens. At first, the world does not notice. The sun rises and sets. The farmers tend their fields. The soldiers polish their shields. But slowly, terrifyingly, the realization spreads. We must visualize the horror of a world without Thanatos. It sounds like a paradise, the dream of immortality realized. But in the Greek worldview, a world without death is not a utopia. It is a miasma, a pollution of the highest order. It is a biological and theological constipation. On the battlefields of Thrace, two armies clash. Spears fly. Swords bite into flesh. Men fall, their bodies opened, their blood soaking the earth. They should die. Their spirits should fly to the house of Hades. But they do not. The wounded lie in the mud, gasping, in agonizing pain, unable to find release. The head, severed from the neck, still blinks its eyes. The heart pierced by the arrow continues to beat, pumping blood into a void. The mercy of the end is gone. The Keres, the violent death spirits, swoop down, but they cannot feed. They cannot finish the job because the final seal, the presence of Thanatos, is missing. In the temples, the priests bring the sacrificial bulls to the altar. They slit the throats. The blood flows. But the bull does not die. It stands there, gurgling, looking at the priest with confused, panic-stricken eyes. The sacrifice is rejected. The smoke does not rise to Olympus. The channel between gods and men is broken. In the sick beds of the elderly, the suffering continues without cease. The grandmother, who has lived her years, who is ready to rest, finds that she cannot take the final breath. She lingers in a twilight of pain, her body failing but her life force trapped, unable to exit the decaying vessel. The world becomes a place of stagnation. The cycle of life requires the harvest. Without the harvest, the field becomes a rot. And up on Mount Olympus, the gods begin to starve. The Greek gods exist on a reciprocal relationship with humanity. Men give sacrifices, the savor of burnt fat and bone, and gods give blessings. But if nothing can die, nothing can be sacrificed. The altars are cold. The feasting halls of Olympus fall silent. The nectar loses its sweetness. Zeus is furious, but there is one god who is even angrier. One god whose entire existence is predicated on the transition from life to death. Ares, the god of war. To Ares, war is not just fighting. It is a harvest of souls. It is the great winnowing. If men fight but do not die, war becomes a farce. It becomes a meaningless athletic contest. The glory of the kill is gone. The piles of the dead that mark a victory are missing. Ares looks down at the battlefields and sees only a writhing, undying mass of agony. He feels cheated. He feels the insult to his core. The pitiless nature of Thanatos is suddenly revealed to be the ultimate mercy, and his absence is the ultimate cruelty. Ares does not wait for a decree from Zeus. He does not consult with the other Olympians. He acts with the impulsive, bloody rage that defines him. He dons his golden armor. He picks up his spear, which is heavy with the weight of 1,000 dooms. He descends from Olympus, not as a radiant savior, but as a furious executioner. He crashes into the palace of Corinth. The doors are smashed from their hinges. Sisyphus, the clever king, has nowhere to hide. He cannot trick the god of war. You cannot reason with a thunderstorm. You cannot flatter an earthquake. Ares does not speak. He destroys. He marches to the dungeons. He finds the bound figure of Thanatos. The god of death is humiliated, weakened, his wings cramped in the narrow cell. Ares raises his massive hands and shatters the chains of Sisyphus. The release is explosive. Thanatos rises. He is no longer the calm, ritualistic priest. He is a dam breaking. He is a starving predator released from a cage. The backlog of the dead calls to him. Thousands of souls kept waiting in their agony suddenly feel the release. Across the world, in a single instant, the severed heads close their eyes. The wounded soldiers breathe their last. The sacrificial bulls finally collapse. The balance of the world snaps back into place with a violent shudder. And the first soul Thanatos claims is Sisyphus. There is no gentle cutting of the hair this time. There is no brother Hypnos to soothe the pain. Thanatos grabs the king with his iron grip. He drags him out of the palace, away from the spring of Peirain, away from the sun-drenched rocks of Corinth. They descend, down through the caverns, down past the roots of the mountains, down to the bronze threshold of the house of Hades. Sisyphus is thrown before the throne of the Underworld king. But the story does not end here. For Sisyphus, the Polytropos, has prepared for this contingency as well. He knew that Ares would come. He knew that brute force would eventually shatter his chains. So he laid a second trap, a trap not of iron, but of law. Before he died, Sisyphus gave strict instructions to his wife, Merope. "When I am gone," he told her, "do not bury me. Do not place the coin in my mouth for Charon. Do not pour the libations of wine and oil on my grave. Do not say the prayers. Throw my body naked into the public square. Let me be unburied. Let me be a disgrace." Merope, a loyal and perhaps terrified wife, obeyed. So, when Sisyphus stands before Hades and Persephone, he plays the part of the outraged victim. He looks at the queen of the underworld, Persephone, whose heart is softer than her husband's. "Lord Hades, Lady Persephone," Sisyphus pleads, "I have no place here. Look at me. I am unburied. My wife, that wicked woman, has dishonored my corpse. She has offered you no tribute. She has mocked the sacred rites of death. How can I cross the Styx without the coin? How can I rest when my body is food for dogs?" He appeals to their vanity and their sense of propriety. The gods of the underworld are sticklers for rules. An unburied dead is an offense to their dignity. It deprives them of their due honors. "Let me go back," Sisyphus begs. just for 3 days. Let me go up and punish my wife. Let me teach her the proper respect for the gods of the dead. I will ensure the funeral is grand. I will ensure the sacrifices are burnt. And then, I promise, I will return on my own." It is a ludicrous request. To let a shade return to the sunlight. It is unheard of. But Sisyphus is persuasive. He plays on the indignation of the gods. He makes them feel that they have been wronged by Merope, not that he is trying to escape. Persephone nods. Hades grunts his assent. 3 days, they say. Go, punish the woman, get your funeral, and return. The gates open. Thanatos, seething with rage, watches as his prize slips through his fingers again. Sisyphus walks back up the long, dark road. He emerges into the light of Corinth. He breathes the fresh air. He feels the sun on his face. And, of course, he does not punish his wife. He embraces her. He laughs. He has done the impossible. He has tricked death twice. He has bound the strong one and outwitted the dark one. For years, Sisyphus lives on. He grows old. He drinks his wine. He watches the sun set over the Gulf of Corinth, knowing that he is living on borrowed time, stolen time. Every breath he takes is a theft from the treasury of Hades. But Thanatos is inevitable. He is not merely a force. He is a function of reality. You can pause gravity, perhaps, but you cannot turn it off. Eventually, the thread runs out completely. Sisyphus dies of old age. Or, in some versions, Thanatos comes back, this time not alone, but with Hermes, the guide of souls, to ensure there are no more tricks. They drag him down, not to the throne room for a trial, but directly to the pit of Tartarus. The punishment of Sisyphus is famous, the rolling of the boulder up the hill. But it is the reason for the punishment that concerns us here. He is not punished simply because he was a bad king. He is punished because he dared to bind Thanatos. He dared to stop the cycle. The rock he rolls is the weight of the death he tried to avoid. It is the burden of an eternal life that goes nowhere. He wanted to live forever, to keep pushing the moment of death away. Fine. Now he has forever. He has a task that never ends. He has an existence of pure, repetitive, meaningless effort. He denied the end, so the gods gave him a reality without an end. This myth of the binding of Thanatos is crucial because it reveals the fragility of the cosmic order. It shows that death is not an omnipotent tyrant. He is a cog in a machine. He can be stopped. But it also shows that stopping him is the worst thing that can happen to the world. It forces us to confront a paradox. We fear death. We run from it. We build walls against it. But life without death is a monstrosity. It is a battlefield of agony that never clears. It is a story that never resolves. Thanatos, the iron-hearted, is the editor who gives the story its shape. As we leave Sisyphus to his eternal, sweaty labor in the dark, we must ask, are there others? Sisyphus used trickery. But was there anyone who met Thanatos not with chains and lies, but with brute strength? Was there anyone who looked at the reaper and said, "I will wrestle you for this soul"? The answer lies in the rolling hills of Thessaly, in the court of a king named Admetus. Here we find a different kind of confrontation, not a trick, but a duel. The playwright Euripides takes us there in his play Alcestis. And here, Thanatos is given his most human, most argumentative, and most physical form. He is not just a silent presence. He is a character with dialogue, with grievances, and with a physical body that can be grabbed, squeezed, and pinned to the ground. We are about to witness a clash of titans. The strongest man who ever lived, Heracles, against the strongest power in the universe. The son of Zeus against the agent of fate. But before the wrestling match, there is a tragedy. A story of a wife who loved too much, and a husband who accepted too much. The sun is rising over Pherae. A figure in black stands at the palace gates. He is checking his list. He is sharpening his blade, and he is waiting for a woman named Alcestis. The contest of the physical is about to begin. The sun of Thessaly is hot and bright. It beats down on the fertile plains of Pherae, ripening the grain and warming the backs of the sheep that graze in the lowlands. It is a landscape of life, of abundance, ruled by a king, Admetus, who is beloved by gods and men alike. But even here, in this pastoral paradise, the shadow falls. For the boundaries of mortality are not drawn on a map. They are drawn in the blood. We have seen Thanatos as the silent courier of the battlefield, carrying the fallen hero with dignity. We have seen him as the bound captive in the dungeons of a trickster, humiliated and chained. But in the tragedy of Alcestis, written by the great dramatist Euripides in 438 BCE, we meet a Thanatos who is strikingly different. He is not just a force. He is a bureaucrat. He is a lawyer for the underworld. He is articulate, argumentative, and fiercely protective of his rights. And he is about to face the only thing in the Greek cosmos that is more stubborn than death: the brute, life-affirming force of Heracles. The story begins with a divine favor, a debt of gratitude that goes wrong. Years ago, Apollo, the golden god of light, was punished by Zeus and forced to serve a mortal man for a year. That man was Admetus. Admetus treated the god with such supreme piety and kindness that Apollo, in turn, granted him a boon. He went to the Fates, the Moirai, and, in a rare moment of divine impropriety, he got them drunk. He poured sweet wine for the spinners of destiny until their hands slipped, and they agreed to a loophole. Admetus would not have to die on his appointed day. He could avoid Thanatos. But, and the laws of the cosmos always have a but, someone else had to die in his place. The ledgers of Hades had to balance, a life for a life. Admetus, perhaps naively, thought this would be easy. He went to his elderly parents. They had lived their lives. They were standing at the threshold of the grave already. Surely they would step aside for their son, but they refused. "Life is sweet," his father Pheres told him. "I do not want to die any more than you do." He went to his friends. He went to his kinsmen. All refused. All except one. His wife, Alcestis, young, beautiful, and the mother of his small children. She agreed to take his place. She agreed to let Thanatos cut her hair instead of his. The day has now arrived. The palace of Pherae is shrouded in mourning. The servants are weeping. Admetus is crushed by the guilt of his own survival. And standing at the gates, Waiting for the precise moment of destiny is Thanatos. In Euripides' play, Thanatos is a terrifying figure. He is dressed in black robes that seem to swallow the light. He carries the sacrificial sword, and he possesses a dark, brooding wingspan. But what is most striking is his dialogue with Apollo. Apollo tries to intervene one last time. He meets death at the gates. He tries to persuade him to spare the woman, or at least to delay. But Thanatos is having none of it. "You have your man," Thanatos sneers at the god of light. "You cheated me of Admetus. Now you want the woman too? You are greedy, Apollo. You take what belongs to the below." Apollo argues for mercy. "She is young," he says. "The young yield more glory," Thanatos replies coldly. This is a chilling revelation of his character. He is not just a collector. He is a harvester who takes pride in the quality of his prize. A young queen is a greater addition to the underworld than a withered old man. He speaks of his geras, his prize of honor. Just as the Olympian gods demand sacrifices and temples, Thanatos demands bodies. It is his due. It is the only way he is recognized. "I am merely taking what is mine," he insists. "The law is the law." Apollo, defeated by the iron logic of the bureaucrat, steps aside. But as he leaves, he flings a prophecy over his shoulder. "Go ahead, take her. But a man is coming to this house, a guest, a man who will wrestle you and take her back." Thanatos laughs, a dry, rattling sound. He does not believe it. No one wrestles death. He enters the palace. He moves to the bedside of Alcestis. He raises the sword. He cuts the lock of hair. The ritual is complete. Alcestis dies. Her spirit descends, and her body is prepared for the tomb. But just as the morning reaches its peak, a stranger walks up the dusty road to Pherae. He is a massive figure, draped in the skin of a Nemean lion, carrying a club cut from a wild olive tree. He is dusty, sweaty, and loud. It is Heracles. He is on one of his 12 labors, specifically the quest to capture the man-eating mares of Diomedes. He is passing through Thessaly and needs a place to sleep. He knocks on the door of Admetus. This moment highlights the supreme importance of xenia, hospitality, in the Greek world, a theme we saw with Sisyphus, but here it is inverted. Sisyphus used hospitality to trap death. Admetus uses hospitality to hide death. Admetus, despite his grief, cannot turn Heracles away. He cannot burden his guest with his own sorrow. So he lies. He tells Heracles that a woman has died, yes, but she was a stranger, merely someone who lived in the house. He hides the truth of his wife's death so that Heracles can eat and drink in peace. Heracles, unaware of the tragedy, settles in. He is a force of pure, unbridled life. While the rest of the house is weeping in the shadows, Heracles is in the guest hall, eating huge amounts of meat, drinking cup after cup of unmixed wine, and crowning himself with garlands of flowers. He sings bawdy songs. He shouts for more food. He is the antithesis of Thanatos. He is warm blood, loud noise, and beating heart. The servants are horrified. They look at this drunken buffoon desecrating a house of mourning. Finally, one servant can take it no more. He snaps. He reveals the truth to Heracles. "You act like a fool. Do you not know? It is Alcestis who is dead. The queen is gone. The effect on Heracles is instantaneous. The cup drops from his hand. The laughter dies in his throat. The lion of Olympus sobers up in a single heartbeat. He feels a profound shame. He has feasted while his host wept. He has sung songs while his friend's wife lay cold. Heracles, for all his roughness, has a noble heart. He decides then and there that he must fix this. He must repay the hospitality of Admetus with a gift that matches the magnitude of the loss. He asks where the tomb is. He asks where the body has been laid. "I will go there," Heracles declares. "I will wait for the Lord of the dead. I will wait for Thanatos." We must visualize the scene at the tomb. It is twilight. The stone sarcophagus of Alcestis sits in a grove of cypress trees, the trees of mourning. The mourners have gone back to the palace. The silence of the grave descends. But Heracles is there. He is hiding behind a tombstone, or perhaps in the shadows of the trees. He is not armed with his club or his bow. He knows that you cannot shoot death. You cannot bludgeon a concept. This must be a contest of wills, of raw physical dominance. He waits, and soon he hears the rustle of wings. Thanatos arrives. He has come to drink the blood of the sacrificial offerings poured at the grave. This is a visceral detail. Death is thirsty. He lands near the tomb, his black robes fluttering in the evening breeze. He expects silence. He expects submission. Heracles springs from the shadows. It is the ambush of the millennium. The demigod wraps his massive oak-like arms around the ribcage of the god of death. The wrestling match that follows is described by Euripides not as a magical duel, but as a physical grappling. Heracles uses the term peribalon, throwing his arms around. He squeezes. Imagine the sensation. Heracles is touching something that should not be touched. Thanatos is cold, colder than ice, colder than the void between stars. His body is hard, unyielding, like the pitiless bronze Hesiod described. But Heracles is the son of Zeus. He possesses a vitality that burns like a furnace. They struggle in the dust. Thanatos flails his great wings, trying to beat Heracles off, trying to rise into the air, but Heracles holds him down. He locks his hands together in a vice grip, crushing the breath, or whatever substance animates a god, out of Thanatos. "Give her back," Heracles grunts, straining with the effort. Thanatos hisses. He fights with the inevitability of the tide, but Heracles is the rock that breaks the tide. He squeezes tighter. He threatens to break the iron ribs of the god. For the first time in his existence, Thanatos feels pain. Not emotional pain, but physical duress. He is being overpowered by a force of life so potent that it overrides the natural law of entropy. Heracles is, in this moment, more alive than Thanatos is dead. "I yield!" the dark god gasps. It is a surrender that shakes the foundations of the underworld. Thanatos, the inevitable, has been pinned. He has been forced to tap out. "Take her," Thanatos whispers, humiliated and bruised. "Take the woman. Let me go." Heracles releases his grip. Thanatos scrambles away, launching himself into the dark sky, fleeing back to the shadows of Tartarus to nurse his pride and his bruised ribs. He leaves empty-handed. Heracles walks into the tomb. He finds the spirit of Alcestis, perhaps hovering near the body, or perhaps he physically lifts her awakening form. He takes her hand. He leads her out of the grave. The walk back to the palace is a journey of impossible wonder. A dead woman walks beside a living hero. She is silent. Euripides tells us she cannot speak yet, for she is still consecrated to the precipice, and it will take 3 days for the pollution of death to wash away. But she is alive. Heracles presents her to Admetus. The king cannot believe his eyes. He thinks it is a ghost. He thinks it is a trick. But Heracles joins their hands. "She is yours," he says. "I fought the grim one at the grave. I won." This victory creates a complex theological implication for the Greeks. It suggests that death is not absolute. It suggests that with enough arete, excellence, strength, virtue, one can literally wrestle destiny and win. But it also reinforces the uniqueness of Heracles. Only he could do this. Sisyphus used a trick, and he was punished. Heracles used strength, and he was rewarded. Why? Because Heracles acted out of love and shame, not out of selfish desire to escape. He acted for another. Thanatos, in this story, is revealed to have a physical limit. He is a part of the physical universe, and therefore he is subject to the laws of physics, even if those laws are applied by a demigod. He can be pushed, he can be hurt. But this defeat is an anomaly. It is the exception that proves the rule. Thanatos will return for Admetus eventually. He will return for Heracles too. Though Heracles will ultimately ascend to Olympus, his mortal part must still be burned away on the pyre. Thanatos loses the battle, but he wins the war. Yet, the image of the wrestling match lingers in the cultural memory. It transforms Thanatos from a distant, abstract horror into a tangible adversary. It makes him a character in the drama of human life, not just the ending of the play. As we move away from the dramatic stage of Euripides and into the mystical, smoke-filled rituals of the Orphic cults, Thanatos undergoes another transformation. We stop seeing him as a bureaucrat or a wrestler. We start seeing him as a key. In the shadows of the ancient mystery religions, death was not an end to be feared or fought. It was a door, and Thanatos was the holder of the key. He was not the enemy of life, but the liberator of the soul. The Orphic Hymns, a collection of religious poetry from a later period of antiquity, offer us a glimpse into a different kind of worship. Here, Thanatos is sung to. He is invoked with incense. He is asked to come gently after a long and full life. The struggle of the body is over. The wrestling match is done. Now, we enter the realm of the spirit. We enter the quiet, hallowed space where Thanatos is not a monster, but a mystery. Let us light the incense of manna. Let us pour the libation. Let us listen to the chant of the initiates who saw in the dark eyes of Thanatos a promise of something greater than the sunlit plains of Thessaly. We are descending deeper now into the theology of the soul. The dust of the wrestling match settles. The shouts of Heracles and the gasps of the defeated god fade into the silence of the mythic past. We leave the sun-drenched plains of Thessaly, where death was a physical adversary to be fought and pinned. We leave the halls of kings where death was a bureaucrat to be argued with. We are moving now into a different space, a quieter space, a space filled not with the smell of sweat and blood, but with the heavy, cloying scent of frankincense and myrrh. We are entering the cave of the initiate. We are stepping into the smoke-filled rituals of the Orphic Mysteries. To understand this profound shift in the perception of Thanatos, we must understand that for a significant portion of the ancient Greek world, mythology was not just a collection of stories about Zeus and Hera. It was a roadmap for the soul. And for the followers of Orpheus, the legendary musician who descended into the underworld and returned, Thanatos was not an enemy. He was not a monster. He was the great liberator. In the mainstream Homeric view, life on Earth was the only thing that mattered. The underworld was a damp, miserable place where shades drifted aimlessly, mourning the loss of the sun. Achilles, in the Odyssey, famously tells Odysseus that he would rather be a slave on Earth to a poor farmer than the king of all the dead. This was the standard view. Life is good, death is bad. Thanatos is the thief of joy. But the Orphics flipped this worldview on its head. They taught a doctrine known as soma sema. The body is a tomb. They believed that the divine soul, the spark of Dionysus, was trapped inside the heavy, earthen prison of the physical body. Life, therefore, was not a celebration. It was a sentence. It was a punishment, or a trial. And if the body is a prison, then what is the entity that unlocks the door? Thanatos. In this light, the god of death transforms. He becomes the breaker of chains. He becomes the divine physician who cures the sickness of mortality. Let us look at the Orphic hymns. This collection of 87 poems, likely composed in the Roman period but containing traditions that go back centuries earlier, was used in secret liturgies. The 87th hymn is dedicated to Thanatos. Listen to the tone. It is not fearful, it is reverent. Hear me, O Queen of all, and thou, O Thanatos, who holdest the keys to the deep. The hymn addresses him directly, something almost never done in public civic religion. It calls him hallowed. It acknowledges his absolute power, noting that to you alone is given the judgment of all. But then it speaks of his function in a way that is strikingly peaceful. It describes him as the one who brings the sleep that is the end of toil. The end of toil. Ponos. In Greek thought, life is defined by labor, by struggle, by the constant effort to stave off hunger, cold, and enemies. Thanatos brings the cessation of effort. For the weary slave, for the tired philosopher, for the suffering invalid, Thanatos is the only one who says, "Rest now, put down the burden." The hymn asks him to come gently. It asks for a good death, a euthanasia in the ancient, literal sense of the word. Not a mercy killing, but a death that is peaceful, timely, and free from the horror of the keres. The initiate prays, "Come, Blessed One, with mind serene, and bring the end of works." This serenity is crucial. In the Orphic tradition, the state of your mind when Thanatos arrives dictates your path in the afterlife. If you die screaming, clutching at your gold, terrified of the dark, your soul remains heavy. It gets stuck in the mud of the Acheron. It is likely to be reincarnated, thrown back into the wheel of birth to suffer life again. But if you greet Thanatos as a friend, if you recognize him as the Hallowed One, then you can follow him. You can navigate the geography of the dark. there is a fascinating duality in the Orphic perception of Thanatos and his brother Hypnos. We usually think of sleep as the temporary relief and death as the permanent one. But the mystics saw them as practicing the same art. Every night, the Orphic initiate would practice dying by sleeping. They would practice letting go of the ego, letting go of control. And when the final moment came, when Thanatos stood at the foot of the bed with his inverted torch, the initiate would not panic. They would simply slide into the deeper sleep, the big sleep, with the grace of someone who has rehearsed the steps 1,000 times. Let us speak of that inverted torch. It is one of the most enduring symbols of Thanatos in funerary art, particularly in the later periods influenced by these mystery cults. You have likely seen it in cemeteries even today, a winged figure holding a torch upside down. The flame is not extinguished. It is merely directed downward. It symbolizes that the fire of life is returning to the earth, returning to the source. It is not snuffed out. It is grounded. Another symbol that begins to associate with Thanatos in this period is the butterfly. In Greek, the word for butterfly and the word for soul are the same, psyche. The metaphor is obvious but profound. The body is the caterpillar, earthbound, crawling, consuming. The coffin, or the deathbed, is the chrysalis, and Thanatos is the force that cracks the chrysalis open. He destroys the shell so that the psyche can fly. To the uninitiated, the cracking of the shell looks like a tragedy. It looks like destruction. But to the one who knows the mysteries, it is a birth. Thanatos is the midwife of the soul. This brings us to the connection between Thanatos and Eros again, but on a higher, more esoteric level. In the Orphic cosmogony, Eros, love/desire, is the force that binds the universe together. Thanatos is the force that separates the spiritual from the material, so it can return to the divine unity. They are the two hands of God. One ties the knot, the other unties it. You cannot have one without the other. In the secret rites held in caves or dimly lit halls, incense was burned to Thanatos, not the savory fat of bulls. Orphics were often vegetarians who abhorred blood sacrifice, believing that animals contained reincarnated souls. Instead, they offered manna, powdered frankincense, and aromatic herbs. The smoke would rise, disappearing into the air just as the soul disappears from the body. Imagine the atmosphere of such a ritual. The initiates, dressed in white linen, standing in a circle. The air is thick with smoke. They chant the hymns in a low drone. They are not asking for wealth. They are not asking for victory in war. They are asking for the courage to face the inevitable one without trembling. They are building a relationship with death before they meet him. This psychological preparation is what the philosopher Plato, who was heavily influenced by these traditions, meant when he said that philosophy is the practice of dying. In his dialogue, Phaedo, which recounts the death of Socrates, we see the ultimate example of the good death. Socrates drinks the hemlock poison not with fear, but with a calm curiosity. He discusses the immortality of the soul until his legs go numb. He treats Thanatos not as an executioner, but as a liberator who is breaking the chains of his old, tired body so he can finally see the truth clearly. To Socrates, and to the mystics, life is a dream or a confusion. The senses lie to us. The body distracts us with hunger and lust. Only when Thanatos shuts down the five senses can the eye of the soul truly open. In this view, We are the ones who are asleep. The dead are the ones who are awake. Thanatos is the alarm clock. There is also a medicinal aspect to this view of Thanatos. In some localized cults, particularly around the sanctuaries of Asclepius, the god of medicine, there is a blurry line between healing and death. Sometimes the ultimate healing is death. For a person in chronic, agonizing pain, for whom the herbs and the surgeries have failed, Thanatos is the only doctor left. He is Paean, the healer. He brings the medicine of non-existence. We find evidence of this relationship in the gold tablets, totenpas, found in graves across the Greek world, from Crete to southern Italy. These tiny leaves of beaten gold were placed on the chests or in the mouths of the dead initiates. They contained instructions for the soul's journey. They were cheat sheets for the afterlife. They tell the soul, "You will find a cypress tree, and near it a spring of water. Do not drink from it. It is lethe, forgetfulness. If you drink, you will forget who you are and be reborn. Instead, go to the lake of memory, Mnemosyne. Tell the guardians, I am a child of earth and starry heaven, but my race is of heaven alone." Thanatos, in this narrative, is the gatekeeper who allows this journey to happen. He releases the soul onto the track. He stands back and watches. He is the neutral facilitator of the great cosmic test. He does not judge the soul. Minos and Rhadamanthus do that, but he enables the judgment to take place. It is interesting to note the silence surrounding Thanatos in these rituals. While Dionysus is worshipped with wild dancing and loud music, orgia, and Cybele with the clashing of cymbals, Thanatos is worshipped with silence. Sige, the holy silence. To make noise in the presence of death was considered profane. When the dying person was taking their final breaths, the household would fall quiet. This was not just respect. It was a ritual imitation of the god himself. To be silent is to be like Thanatos. In the visual arts of this period, particularly on the white-ground lekythoi, oil flasks used for graves, we see Thanatos depicted with a softness that is heartbreaking. He is often shown with his brother Hypnos, lifting a young warrior or a maiden. But unlike the stiff, archaic depiction of Sarpedon, these figures are fluid, graceful. Thanatos looks at the deceased not with hunger, but with a kind of melancholy compassion. He knows the sorrow of the living, but he has his duty. There is a famous relief column from the Temple of Artemis at Ephesus that shows a winged figure, believed to be Thanatos, gently guiding a woman, perhaps Alcestis again, or just a generic soul. His sword is sheathed. His hand rests lightly on her arm. He is guiding, not dragging. This is the psychopomp aspect, the guide of souls, which he shares with Hermes. But while Hermes leads the soul to the underworld, Thanatos is the one who extracts it from the life. Hermes is the travel agent. Thanatos is the departure officer. This esoteric view of death changes the entire emotional landscape of the ancient world. It offered hope. If Thanatos is just a transition, then we do not lose our loved ones to the void. We lose them to the mystery. They have gone to a place where the heavy and hard is replaced by the light and pure. We must also consider the connection to the seasons. The myth of Persephone, who dies, descends, and is reborn, ascends, every year, is central to the Eleusinian mysteries. Thanatos is the winter. He is the cold wind that strips the trees bare, but the tree does not die. The sap withdraws into the roots. Thanatos forces the life force inward, into the hidden depths, so that it can rest and gather strength for the spring. Without the winter, the summer sun would scorch the earth. Without Thanatos, life would exhaust itself. He is the great conservationist. He conserves the energy of the cosmos by recycling the forms. The initiate who understands this walks through life with a different demeanor. They do not cling to things. They understand that everything they hold, their youth, their wealth, their body, is on loan from Thanatos. And when he comes to collect, they return it with a bow, not a fight. I give back what was never mine, the Stoic philosopher might say. But even with all this philosophy, all this incense, and all these golden tablets, the visceral reality of death remains. The mystery cults could soothe the mind, but they could not stop the tears. When the child died, the mother still wept. When the lover died, the partner still tore their hair. The intellectual acceptance of Thanatos does not negate the emotional pain of his arrival. And this pain leads us to the physical geography of his domain. We have spoken of his nature, his battles, and his worship. But where does he actually take you? What is the topography of the realm that Thanatos guards? He is the ferryman's supplier. He is the provider for Charon. He is the one who fills the waiting room on the banks of the Acheron. To understand the full scope of his power, we must follow him down. We must leave the smoke of the Orphic cave and descend the path that he walks every day. We must look at his relationship with the other dark powers of the subterranean world. We must look at the hierarchy of the shadows. How does Thanatos interact with Hades, the king? How does he relate to the Furies, the punishers? And how does he share his duties with Hermes, the messenger who crosses the boundaries? The incense burns out. The golden tablet is placed on the tongue. The eyes are closed. The silence falls. Thanatos extends his hand. The journey to the other side begins. We are going to the banks of the river of woe. We are going to see how the traffic of souls is managed in the kingdom of the dark. The smoke of the Orphic incense fades, and the golden tablets are hidden in the silence of the tomb. But the journey of the soul is not static. It is a movement. It is a migration. And every migration requires a guide. In the vast bureaucratic machinery of the Greek cosmos, Thanatos does not work in isolation. He is part of a complex hierarchy, a dark ecosystem of deities who manage the transition from the sunlight of the upper world to the gloom of the lower. We must now look at how the iron-hearted god fits into the court of the infernal king, and how he shares the burden of the dead with the other great psychopomp, the trickster Hermes. The relationship between Thanatos and Hermes is one of the most fascinating partnerships in mythology. They are, in many ways, opposites. Hermes is the god of motion, of speech, of commerce, and of the quick wit. He is bright, golden-sandaled, and holds the Kerykeion, the caduceus staff entwined with snakes. Thanatos is the god of stillness, of silence, and of the inevitable end. He is dark, iron-shod, and holds the inverted torch or the shearing sword. Yet, they work in tandem. They are the relay runners in the race of mortality. Imagine the moment of death. Thanatos is the first to arrive. He is the extractor. He is the one who severs the link between the body and the spirit. As we have seen, he cuts the lock of hair. He drains the vitality. He deals with the physical reality of dying, the stopping of the heart, the cooling of the limbs. He claims the soul from the claim of biology. But once the soul is loose, once it is a fluttering, confused shade standing over its own corpse, Thanatos often steps back. He hands the baton to Hermes. Hermes Chthonios, Hermes of the earth, arrives to guide the confused spirit. He uses his golden wand to wake the eyes of the dead, to make them see the path that is invisible to the living. He leads them down the damp, winding roads that lead to the entrances of Hades, perhaps the caves at Tanarum, or the dark waters of the Acheron in Thesprotia. Thanatos often accompanies them, a silent shadow walking behind the chatting Hermes, ensuring the soul does not turn back. This handover is depicted beautifully on the white ground lekithoi, the funerary vases of classical Athens. These vases show the grave not as a place of horror, but as a meeting point. We see the deceased, often looking young and confused. We see Hermes, gentle and beckoning, and we see Thanatos, standing watch. He is the guarantor of the transaction. Hermes is the travel agent who knows the route. Thanatos is the customs officer who stamps the passport. You cannot leave the country of the living without his mark. But why the need for two guides? Because the journey is perilous. The soul is fragile. It can be blown away by the winds. It can be snatched by the keres if they are lurking nearby. It can get lost in the liminal spaces between worlds. Thanatos provides the security. Hermes provides the direction. Once they reach the banks of the Acheron, the river of woe, or the Styx, the river of hate, the jurisdiction shifts again. Here waits Charon, the ferryman. Charon is a squalid, ill-tempered figure with eyes like wheels of fire. He demands the coin, the obol, placed in the mouth of the corpse. Thanatos does not pay the coin. He does not negotiate with the ferryman. He delivers the cargo to the dock and waits. If the soul has the coin, Hermes helps them aboard. If they do not, they must wander the banks for 100 years. Thanatos does not pity the wandering ones. His job was to bring them to the river. What happens next is a matter of economics and ritual, not destiny. Once across the water, the soul enters the true kingdom of Hades. And here, Thanatos takes his place as a high minister of the court. Hades, the king, the wealthy one, sits on an ebony throne next to his queen, Persephone. They are the rulers of this subterranean state. Thanatos is their enforcer. He is the one who ensures that the census of the dead is accurate. He is the one who prevents escapes. We saw with Sisyphus what happens when Thanatos is incapacitated. The flow of subjects stops, and the king is angered. In the hierarchy of the underworld, Thanatos outranks the monsters. He is above Cerberus, the three-headed hound. Cerberus is merely a guard dog. Thanatos is a divine principle. He is above the judges, Minos, Rhadamanthus, and Iacchus. The judges decide where you go in the underworld, Elysium, Asphodel, or Tartarus. But Thanatos decides that you go. Without him, the judges would have no cases to try. There is a terrifying solemnity to his standing in the court. While the Furies, Erinyes, scream and punish the wicked, with whips of bronze and snakes, Thanatos does not punish. He is not a torturer. He stands by the throne, silent, his dark wings folded, a reminder to every shade that their state is permanent. The Furies might eventually let Orestes go if he is purified. Thanatos never lets anyone go. However, we must make a crucial distinction again, one that often confuses modern readers. We must distinguish Thanatos from the Keres in the visual language of the Underworld. In the Shield of Heracles, a poem attributed to Hesiod, there is a vivid description of the Keres on a battlefield. They are described as dark, gnashing their white teeth, grim-faced, terrible, bloody, and unapproachable. They fight over the falling men, eager to drink the black blood. One would grab a dying man, another would tear at him. They are the scavengers of violence. Thanatos is never described this way. He does not eat the dead. He does not drink blood, except perhaps symbolically in the Odyssey sacrifice. He is stougaros, hateful, but he is clean. He is a god of catharsis, cleansing, in his own way, removing the pollution of life. He stands apart from the gore of the Keres. He is the aristocrat of death. They are the feral dogs. This distinction is why Thanatos could be worshipped, or at least respected, while the Keres were only feared and warded off. You build a shrine to the inevitable. You do not build a shrine to the accident. Speaking of shrines, where did the Greeks actually honor this silent god? As we noted, he had few temples. But there is one place, one city of iron discipline and warrior ethos that understood him better than any other. Sparta. Pausanias, the Greek geographer of the 2nd century A.D., traveled through Laconia and visited the city of Sparta. In his description of Greece, he records something remarkable. He writes, "There is also a sanctuary of Athena of the Bronze House, and here there are statues of sleep and death. They consider them brothers, consistent with the passage in the Iliad. Of all the places in Greece, it makes perfect sense that Sparta would honor Thanatos. The Spartan life was a preparation for the beautiful death, kalos Thanatos. To die on the battlefield, facing the enemy, was the highest honor a Spartan citizen could achieve. They did not fear Thanatos. They courted him. They invited him to stand in their shield wall. For a Spartan mother, the return of a son on his shield, dead, was preferable to his return without it, fleeing. Thanatos was the validator of Spartan virtue. If he took you in battle, you were immortalized in memory. If he took you in bed of old age, you were forgotten. Thus, the statue of Thanatos in the sanctuary of Athena was not a grim warning, but a promise of glory. In contrast, the Athenians, who loved philosophy, art, and life, had a more ambivalent relationship with him. They created the white-ground lekithoi we spoke of earlier. These vases are masterpieces of delicate emotion. They were filled with oil and left at the grave. The images painted on them are fleeting. The white background is fragile and flakes off easily, much like life itself. On these vases, Thanatos is almost always a young man. He is handsome. He wears a chiton, tunic, and winged boots. He looks like a slightly older, more serious Hermes. Why depict death as beautiful? Because the Greeks loved beauty. They could not bear the idea that the final experience of the human form was ugly. So they beautified the extractor. They made him a kalos youth, so that the dying person would not recoil in terror, but might reach out a hand. "Come," the image says. "It is not dark, it is just quiet." There is another aspect of Thanatos' domain that is often overlooked: his relationship to memory, mnemosyne, and oblivion, lethe. Death is the twin of sleep, but he is also the cousin of forgetting. When Thanatos takes a person, he takes their future, but he also threatens their past. The second death is the moment when the last person speaks your name. Thanatos initiates the first death of the body. But does he have power over the second? In a way, he does. By removing the person from the sight of the living, he begins the process of fading. But the Greeks fought Thanatos with kleos, glory, fame, renown. Achilles chose a short life with kleos over a long life with obscurity. He made a deal with Thanatos. "You can have my body early, but you cannot touch my name." So, the hierarchy of the underworld is also an archive. Hades guards the souls. Mnemosyne guards the stories. Thanatos is the archivist who files the soul away, closing the book. But let us imagine the geography of his daily commute. Where does he fly? He flies over the demes of Attica, the small villages. He flies over the islands of the Aegean. He flies over the rugged mountains of Arcadia. Everywhere he goes, he brings a hush. The dog barks at the invisible intruder. The birds stop singing. The wind dies down. He enters the house through the atrium. He stands by the hearth. He is the uninvited guest who becomes the host. He takes the hand of the father, the mother, the child. He leads them out. And then, the long flight. Have you ever flown in a dream? That weightless, drifting sensation? That is the sensation of the grip of Thanatos. He does not drag you down through the dirt. He lifts you. The geography of the descent is often described as a katabasis, a going down. But physically, for the soul, it might feel like an ascent into the ether before the plunge. They fly past the white rock of Lucas, the boundary of the conscious mind. They fly past the gates of the sun. They fly past the land of dreams, where the oneiroi, dream spirits, live. This is the neighborhood of Hypnos. Thanatos nods to his brother as they pass. The dreamer sees the face of the dead loved one in a dream because the realms are adjacent. Finally, they reach the asphodel meadows, the gray, colorless fields where the indifferent souls wander. Here, Thanatos releases his grip. "You are home," he seems to say. "Rest." He turns his back. He spreads his great, dark wings, and he ascends again, back to the light, back to the waiting world, back to the next name on the list. He is tireless. He is efficient. He is essential. But as the classical world began to fade, as the temples of Apollo crumbled, and the fires of the Vestal Virgins died out, the image of Thanatos began to change again. New ideas were coming from the East. New philosophies were rising in Rome. The Stoics looked at Thanatos and saw not a god, but a natural law. The Christians looked at him and saw an enemy to be defeated by resurrection. The era of the myths was ending. The era of the symbol was beginning. Thanatos was about to undergo his final metamorphosis. He would shed his wings. He would shed his chiton. He would eventually pick up the scythe that belonged to Cronus, the Titan of time. He would become the Grim Reaper. But before he fades into the skeleton of the Middle Ages, we must pay our final respects to the beautiful, winged youth of the Greeks. We must look at his legacy in the twilight of antiquity. We must see how the poets and the philosophers bid him farewell. The sun is setting on Olympus. The twilight of the gods is at hand, and standing amidst the ruins, watching the lights go out one by one, is the patient, silent, ever-waiting Thanatos. He has one last story to tell, the story of his own end, or rather the end of the belief in him. We are moving to the final chapter, to the legacy of the silence. The marble columns of the Parthenon turn gold, then pink, then violet, as the sun sinks behind the mountains of the Peloponnese. The lamps are lit in the Academy of Plato. The scrolls are rolled up in the library of Alexandria. The ancient world, the world of heroes and monsters, of gods who walked the earth and interfered in the lives of men, is slowly fading into the twilight of history. We have walked the long path of Thanatos. We saw him born from the primordial silence of Nyx. We watched him carry the broken body of Sarpedon with the tenderness of a brother. We saw him chained by the trickster Sisyphus, wrestled by the mighty Heracles, and invoked in the smoky caves of the Orphic Mysteries. But gods do not die in the way mortals do. They change. They evolve. They retreat into the shadows of language and the architecture of the human mind. As the temples crumbled and the statues were toppled, Thanatos did not disappear. He merely changed his mask. In this final chapter of our journey, we must look at the legacy of the iron-hearted god. We must see how the beautiful, winged youth of the Greeks became the terrifying skeleton of the Middle Ages, and how, in the modern world, he was reborn not as a deity, but as a psychological drive. The transformation begins with Rome. When the Romans adopted the Greek pantheon, they took Thanatos and named him Mors. But the Roman temperament was different. It was harder, more pragmatic, more martial. While the Greeks saw a certain beauty in the melancholy of death, the Romans saw a grim inevitability. Mors was less of a personality and more of a fact. The poetry remained, but the softness began to harden. However, the most significant shift in the image of death came not from Rome, but from a confusion of symbols that would alter Western iconography forever. In the Greek tradition, Thanatos carried a sword for cutting hair, or an inverted torch. He did not carry a scythe. The scythe, the harpa, belonged to someone else entirely. It belonged to Cronus, Saturn, the Titan of the harvest, the father of Zeus. It was an agricultural tool used to reap the grain. But as the centuries passed, and the precise knowledge of mythology began to blur in the Dark Ages, a linguistic accident occurred. The Greek word for time is chronos. The name of the Titan is Cronus. They are distinct words with different roots, but to the medieval ear they sounded the same. Father Time, Chronos, began to be depicted with the attributes of the harvest god, Cronus. He was given the scythe. And because time is the thing that eventually kills us all, Father Time and death became merging figures. Thanatos, the winged youth, was slowly absorbed into this new, terrifying amalgam. He lost his wings. He lost his flesh. He became the skeletal figure we know today. Why the skeleton? Because the medieval world was a world of plague. The Black Death did not come with the dignity of a Homeric warrior. It came with rotting flesh, with buboes, with mass graves. The beautiful death of the Greeks was impossible when millions were dying in squalor. The art reflected this reality. The danse macabre, the dance of death, showed a grinning corpse dragging emperors and peasants alike to the grave. This is a tragic devolution of our protagonist. The noble, silent, hallowed Thanatos was stripped of his dignity and turned into a monster. The god who carried Sarpedon home was replaced by the grim reaper who hacks at the living. We lost the psychopomp and gained the executioner. But while the art was becoming more grotesque, the philosophy was becoming more refined. Even as the temples of Thanatos were abandoned, the greatest minds of the ancient world were creating a fortress of thought that honored his principles. Stoicism. The Stoic philosophers, Seneca, Epictetus, Marcus Aurelius, were, in many ways, the secular priests of Thanatos. They stripped away the mythology, but they kept the ethos. They taught that death was not an evil, but a natural process. Marcus Aurelius, the philosopher king, wrote in his Meditations, "To pass through this brief life as nature demands, to give it up without complaint, like an olive that falls when it is ripe, blessing the earth that bore it, and grateful to the tree that gave it growth. This is pure Thanatos. It is the acceptance of the cycle." The Stoics practiced memento mori. Remember that you must die. This was not meant to be morbid. It was meant to be liberating. If you remember that Thanatos is standing behind you, you do not waste time on petty anger. You do not worry about the opinions of others. You live with urgency and clarity. In Stoicism, Thanatos is the ultimate perspective adjuster. He is the force that reveals what is truly important. When you are standing on the threshold, the gold in your treasury means nothing. The integrity of your soul means everything. As Christianity rose, it brought a new narrative. Christ conquered death. "O death, where is thy sting?" St. Paul asked. In this worldview, Thanatos was an enemy to be defeated, the last enemy. The resurrection promised that the grave was not the end. And yet, the name endured. It endured in the hidden corners of language. We speak of thanatology, the study of death and dying. We speak of euthanasia, the good death, a term that ancient Greeks would have understood perfectly as the gentle touch of the god. We speak of thanatosis in biology, the behavior where animals play dead to survive. But the most profound resurrection of Thanatos occurred in the early 20th century. It happened not in a temple, but in a doctor's office in Vienna. Sigmund Freud. In his 1920 essay Beyond the Pleasure Principle, Freud introduced a revolutionary concept. He had spent his career studying the libido, the life drive, the sexual energy that propels us forward. He called this force Eros. But he realized that Eros could not explain everything. He looked at the soldiers returning from the First World War, traumatized, reliving their nightmares. He looked at the human tendency toward self-destruction, aggression, and repetition. He realized there must be an opposing force, a force that seeks to return the living organism to a state of calm, to a state of inorganic silence. He called this the death drive, and although he did not use the term Thanatos frequently in his own writing, his followers and the psychoanalytic tradition firmly stamped it with the name of the god. The conflict between Eros and Thanatos became the central drama of the human psyche. Eros is the builder. Thanatos is the dismantler. Eros seeks connection, complexity, and tension. Thanatos seeks separation, simplicity, and release. Freud's Thanatos is not a killer. It is a desire for peace. It is the urge to stop struggling. It is the part of us that looks at the chaotic, noisy, demanding world and says, I just want to sleep. I just want it to stop. In this modern psychological framework, we see the ancient god perfectly preserved. He is still the brother of Hypnos, sleep. He is still the force that offers an end to ponos, toil. When we are exhausted, when we are overwhelmed, we feel the pull of Thanatos, not necessarily as a suicidal urge, but as a longing for the quiet. It is a testament to the power of the Greek imagination that thousands of years later, when we try to understand the deepest, darkest currents of our own minds, we reach back to the house of night. We reach back to the winged brother. We acknowledge that the iron heart is beating within us all. So, where is he now? If you close your eyes and listen to the silence of the night, you can still find him. He has retreated from the battlefields, which are now dominated by machines. He has retreated from the hospitals, where machines fight to keep the breath in the body at all costs, denying him his due. He lingers in the quiet places. He lingers in the fall of the autumn leaf. He lingers in the moment the book is closed. He lingers in the space between the exhale and the inhale. He is no longer the scary monster under the bed. We have grown up. We understand now that he is the frame that gives the picture its meaning. Without the border of darkness, the light would have no definition. Without the silence of Thanatos, the music of life would be just an endless, deafening noise. We should not fear him. The ancients didn't. They respected him. They poured the libation. They cut the lock of hair. They understood that he was the only god who never broke a promise. Zeus might promise you victory and fail. Aphrodite might promise you love and leave you heartbroken. But Thanatos? He promised he would come. And he will. There is a comfort in that reliability. In a world of uncertainty, of shifting markets and changing climates and fickle friends, Thanatos is the constant. He is the anchor. Imagine him one last time, not as the skeleton with the scythe, but as the winged youth of the white ground Lekythos. He is standing at the edge of the world, looking out over the dark ocean of eternity. His torch is inverted, the flame resting on the earth. His brother Sleep is beside him. They are waiting, not with malice, not with hunger, but with patience. They are the guardians of the great rest, and when our own personal Troy has fallen, when our own walls are breached, and our fires have burned down to embers, they will be there. They will lift us. They will carry us over the wine-dark sea. They will take us home. Thank you for walking this path into the shadows with me. It is a heavy subject, but I hope that by looking at the face of the ancient god, we have found not fear, but a sense of profound, atmospheric peace. The myths are more than stories. They are the collective dreams of humanity. And sometimes we need to dream of the dark to appreciate the light. If you found solace in this journey to the House of Night, if you enjoyed exploring the quiet power of Thanatos and the mysteries of the Underworld, please consider leaving a like on this video. It helps our humble hearth fire burn a little brighter in the vast algorithm of the internet. And if you haven't already, subscribe to Hearths of Myths. We have many more journeys to take. We will climb to the peaks of Olympus, dive to the depths of Atlantis, and walk the forests of the Wild Hunt. But for now, the story is done. The thread is cut. The book is closed. Let the name of Thanatos fade back into the myth. Let the heavy eyelids of Hypnos weigh you down. The day is over. The work is done. Rest now. Sleep well.